I think, her special guest, which she'll show you very shortly. Please, guys, come on out.
Can you show that, please? The first ever women's Olympics. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the real deal.
The gold medal's in the house.
It's in the house. Now, quick question. Are any of you old enough to remember Forrest Gump, the movie Forrest Gump? Okay. Forrest Gump was in like 10 different really important, you guys can sit down here.
Thank you.
Some really important historical moments. Nothing like Lisa Brown-Miller. During her 15-year run through the national team, starting at Providence College, she hit on all these different super important sea changes of women's hockey. She was a scholarship athlete when there was only 50 scholarships in the United States.
The whole country.
In the whole country. She was an ECAC Player of the Year. She played in the first ever World Championship, which was a doozy and maybe book-worthy in and of itself. While she was coaching at Princeton, playing in all these national teams, when the United States was a bridesmaid to Canada, and then suddenly she's thrust into a championship game where USA levels the playing field with Canada and turns it into what we all know, Keith, the best rivalry in sports.
Absolutely.
Again, Lisa's front and center in this, and then all of a sudden, to cap it all off, her crowning achievement, winning a gold medal in Nagano, the first women's team ever to win a gold medal in hockey. And we had an eyewitness to that. Keith, take it away. What do you remember from that?
Yeah, I like telling this story. I had a chance to cover that 98 games, the winter games, both the men's Olympic hockey tournament, the first year that the NHL players were there to play in the Olympics, and the first ever women's ice hockey tournament. And the rivalry between Team USA and Canada was as advertised. And there was a game leading up to that, the round robin game, where you guys came from far behind and beat Canada, which was really kind of the turning point of the rivalry. I think set up the gold medal game. But I just remembered, I shared this with Lisa and other people recently, that moment when the American women won the gold medal, they were lining up to hear the national anthem. But first, they bring out a tray of gold medals, and the women are all lined up, and they take the first gold medal, and the captain, Cami Granado, leans forward just slightly and gets the first gold medal ever awarded to a woman hockey player. To witness that moment was pretty special, but to see the reaction of her teammates, there, right next to her was Karen Bai, the alternate captain. Right next to her was Lisa Brown-Miller. And when that gold medal went around Cami's neck, Lisa actually doubled over with emotion. I thought your knees were buckling and you're going to go down. But the emotion that they showed, that she and her teammates showed at that moment was, in my experience, 20 years plus covering sports, the single most emotional moment I'd ever witnessed in sports.
Well, let's hear from the recipient. Tell me about that emotional moment.
I mean, Keith's spot on. It was big. And I think for us, that team, I mean, we'd been playing hockey for a while, and me more than some of the others, but in that particular moment, we had worked with a sports psychologist, Peter Harwell, and many times he would walk us through, okay, imagine, being in Nagano, imagine, going out for your first practice, imagine this, imagine that, imagine. And then I'm actually getting goosebumps talking about it. We were told to imagine, a medal ceremony. And when we had won, went back to the locker room to collect ourselves, remove our shoulder pads, and they got things ready, and we came out, and for so long, this had just been a vision. And we were just personally, like, I was absolutely floored. And I think the rest of the team was too, because finally you see these Japanese women coming out with kimonos and in kimonos with the basket of medals. And I remember looking at Karambai saying, oh my gosh, those are real. And then that you just were absolutely, just like filled with emotion when that medal went around your neck.
And they awarded them all, and then they played the national anthem.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was amazing. Because I can't tell you like how many times you hear the Canadian national anthem and how old that gets. And you're like, they're raising the flag. You're like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, and that was a different kind of emotion that you would experience, right? Like just that in sport, when you're in a team sport, you're winning the gold, you're winning the bronze, but for the silver medal, you're losing. And so we were just so tired of losing and hearing the anthem.
We were talking backstage. How many silver medals do you have, and where are they?
Yeah, I have a lot. I don't know how many. What is 6 or something like that? But it's funny because I'll tell Peggy every once in a while. I'm like, oh hey, look what I found in like my drawer in my dresser. Like they're not all collectively in one place. They weren't. They are now. But yeah, the gold medal is. I always know where that's at.
The correct answer, according to your teammates, how many silver medals do you have?
Too many.
Too damn many. Yeah.
Too many. Yeah. Too many.
One thing I want to bring up, Lisa. So we got you in the line getting your gold medal. The games are over. You go back to the United States. Lisa was the oldest member of that team in her early 30s, and also the smallest, 5'1". 5'1", yeah,
5'1",
small. And you went back and you went back home. You got home and you found something out.
Oh, yeah. Kind of a little nugget.
A little nugget.
Little nugget. Yeah. I unbeknownst to me, I was pregnant with my son.
How cool is that? And she played that whole tournament in Nagano, and never once were they penalized for too many men on the ice.
This is a good one, Keith. Actually, after the tournament was done, and the coaching that I had to that point, Ben Smith did ask me to become involved with the women's national team on a coaching level, and I used that exact line with him. I'm like, yeah, coach, we're lucky we didn't get called for too many men on the ice. And he's like, wait, what are you telling me?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a great story.
I'd like to jump in and ask
Please
Keith, 1998, as you said, first women's tournament, but it was the first year that NHL players,
right,
and they had such high expectations.
Yeah.
They were the reigning World Cup champions, the co-number 1 seeds with Canada to win the tournament. How'd those Americans do?
It was all about going in. It was all about who's going to win the gold, Canada or the U.S. The U.S. had been having some success in world competition against the Canadians. Neither team finished in the medals.
But it was the United States that left in disgrace.
And the United States, they did. They not only lost, finished about 6th, I think, but were put a black eye on the whole experience for the NHL and for USA Hockey and so on. They trashed their dorm rooms. They were breaking windows, throwing furniture out the window, and just having a final bash, night out,
fire extinguishers,
tearing the place up.
Yeah.
And so they all left town the next morning. They left town. You guys were in town for a couple of days, and you guys wound up getting penalized for it.
Yeah, we did.
Listen
as
to
a matter
this.
of fact, yeah. So the length of the women's tournament went nearly the whole duration of the Olympics, and here's this monumental moment. Women's ice hockey is now on the map. So many people had no idea that it even existed, and we win the biggest game ever. We're the underdogs, and we're then told, you have a curfew. You guys can't go out and celebrate, and you're going to stay in the village.
You can't celebrate your gold medal. We got to give you a curfew because the men
Trash the hotel rooms. or the Olympic Village of all
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you guys felt great about that.
Yeah, that was a little hard, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the chapter that Keith and I wrote called Crime and Punishment, right? Wrong gender got punished on that one.
Well, it's sort of typical, isn't it?
I was going to
Don't
say
get her
it,
started.
right? I was going to say, I'm like, well, they really screwed up, but you know, the women will like, they'll show some class. They'll follow the rules.
Yeah, no, didn't happen.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
So we're going to go on the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have Keith read about, from the captain, Cami Granato. Keith did some first-class reporting. Cami Granato, the captain, most of you have heard of Cami Granato if you follow women's hockey. She revealed all to Keith for the first time. And part of it was what it was like growing up having to play boys hockey if she were going to play. So there's a quote from Cami, and then we're going to talk about pucks and ponytails. Keith.
All right. It begins with her quote. When you're a girl playing among boys, you just want to play. I authentically wanted to play hockey. Luckily, I had the support of my family, but it wasn't easy. There were tough times. Looking back on it as an adult, you see it through different eyes. A lot of it wasn't okay. Close quote. Lisa, you experienced a lot of what she's talking about there. Can you talk about the stuff that you endured, falling in love with a game that we all fell in love with, hockey, and wanting to play as a kid on the ponds in Oakland County, having to play with and against boys. You didn't play with women, I think, until you went to college, right?
I played girls hockey, probably was like around 13, 14
Okay.
when I made that transition.
Okay. But you played with boys
I played with boys.
a lot.
I did a lot. And actually credit to my mom and my dad, but there was a little boy down the street. I was little at the time too, so we were both little, but he had some big ideas, and he was a goalie. He was a hockey goalie, and this was my first exposure to the sports. And I would go to his house. Because he was a goalie, had all the big pads. Do we have any goalies in here? Yeah, super fun position, right? And you get to play all the time, like you're on the ice all the time. So Chris and I would take turns shooting tennis balls at each other. And I mean, being a parent now, I don't know, his mom is a saint, but we would shoot tennis balls at each other, taking turns wearing the goalie gear. And they lived on Green Lake. And so tennis ball, we bouncing off lampshades and pictures and the picture window overlooking the lake. And she just kind of let us do our thing. And I recall going home, talking to my mom and dad saying, hey, Chris plays hockey. I think I'd like to play hockey. And so thankfully, I at that point, I don't recall them ever saying, well, you can't because you're a girl. The difference was they said, okay, let's look into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that I was venturing into an all-boys sport until I landed at the hockey rink. And there was not a single girl anywhere to be found. And I think initially at age 6, 7, it wasn't so bad, but it definitely, you had to kind of take your hard knocks. And I think for me as a player, helped me become the player I was leading up to 98, because I had to prove myself. You had a target on your back. I can't speak for what the parents were saying up in the stands, but I had heard some pretty nasty stories from my mom, like, why is a girl out there? A girl shouldn't be on the ice. Hockey's not for girls. She should be figure skating instead. And and then there were other teams. So it was a tough time. You're trying to play a sport that you genuinely love and have this passion for, and you got people around you that are just trying to get you out of the game.
Right. Well, some of your teammates on that 98 team, AJ Mlechko, was not AJ when she started playing as a little girl. She was Allison
James.
Allison Jane, right. But she had to change. For the programs when they were on their travel hockey teams, they changed it to AJ Mlechko so that they couldn't so easily tell that it was a girl rather than a boy. And if they found out, opposing coaches would target her because she was kind of tall. She was the tall. She didn't look out of place playing among boys, but when they found out that she was a girl, they gave her the
target on her
business.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some girls cut their hair and all sorts of different things just to survive, to play the game that they loved.
Keith, you did some of that excellent reporting on Cami Granado. She was being threatened because they're playing at a high-level tournament,
Yeah.
and they were threatening her with what, like separating her shoulders?
Well, yeah, it was a travel team. She was on a real good boys team, and her coach at the time found out that the other coach had targeted her for some abuse on the ice, and Cammie's cousin was also on the team, another Granado, a big, strong guy, and the coach decided to switch jerseys. Cammie, and Cammie got along just fine in that game. She wasn't bothered, but this is what coaches had to do to protect their players. It was not like Cammie said, a lot of it wasn't okay.
However, there's another side to the story. Now, you probably will tell us that you benefited somewhat from playing with the boys.
For sure. Yeah. As I indicated before, I think just that mental toughness, right? Or you've got to be fast. You know, if somebody has your number, you've got to be fast. You got to get out of there. You've got to be shifty. You've got to really prove that you belong on the ice. And I don't recall any of the other kids having to prove they belonged there. But at the same time, you know, I wanted to be as good as I possibly could be on the ice. So it was sort of a challenge. And over the course of time, like, I really think that those events, though were unfair at the time, I didn't realize how unfair they were.
Right.
But when I look back on my experience, I know that they gave me some resilience and fortitude and to fight for something that you love. I wasn't going to have somebody run me out of the rink.
Great.
Even though you're 5'1". That's right. All right. So you ended up playing scholarship hockey at Providence College, and Providence College turned out Cami Granado. I can name you some other real stars who had played there, but you're kind of the first in a long line of stars. I got to tell you, college hockey today, a Division I scholarship, that's the best level you can possibly imagine, and it's a great thing to set your sights toward. Can you talk a little bit about your experience? And again, all these great Midwesterners had to come east to play at the Boston schools, New Hampshire, or Providence College, because there weren't any scholarships in the Midwest. What was it like at Providence College as a scholarship athlete?
Can I tell a little backstory
Sure,
to that
love to.
first?
Of course.
Okay. Going to play college out east was not an easy task because, as we know, people of maybe this age group, right? Social media didn't exist. Coaches were not taking a lot of trips to scout in Michigan. And so it was a lot of, you know, writing letters and sort of selling yourself. And to my dad's credit, again, he provided me information to say, hey, here are these schools. And as soon as I knew there was college hockey, like, that was my next target. And the place to go to get noticed was Babson College, which is in Wellesley, Massachusetts. So that was my first exposure to what maybe college could offer me.
That was like a showcase event you're talking about at Babson College.
Yeah, sorry, it was like, yeah, a summer camp where college coaches worked. So I had the likes of, you know, the Harvard coach and the Yale coach and UNH and, you know, some of those. I mean, really, there weren't a lot of schools. So maybe half the coaches were actually working at the camp. Like, good for them too, right? Like, that's what you do as a coach. Like, work camp and you get to see some recruits and you start following those trails. So we took a tour. We went and saw some of those schools. My dad and I made a trip, and he liked Northeastern and UNH, and I really liked Providence. Small school. And they were not the best team in the country. I didn't want to go play for the best team. So there's that like drive and determination and like you just want to like prove you belong. And I I had never seen college hockey before. I didn't know if I was going to be on the fourth line, the first line. I had no idea. I wanted to go to the number 2 school though and make an impact.
That's terrific. Yeah. So you graduated in 1988 as the National Player of the Year. And everyone would probably think, okay, time to get on with your life. You decided to stick around. What was the process like? Because there was a world championship coming 2 years later. Was that even on your radar?
Not really. It wasn't even really spoken about at that point. So I graduate and I think, I love the sport, but what am I going to do? How am I going to keep this in my life? And really it was just recreational hockey at that point, beer league, so to speak. So then I got an interesting phone call, probably about 5-6 years after graduation, from a place called Princeton University. Some of you probably have heard of it. And they offered me a job as an assistant coach. And I thought to myself, well, if I can't play the game anymore, I can at least coach the game. And then that sort of unfolded into, well, now there's going to be a women's national team. I'm like, so fortunately for me, as doors were about ready to open, so we can even talk about Title IX too, right? Like I was there as those doors were starting to open up and take advantage of that. But 1990, the first Women's World Championship, I was able to take advantage of that and try out for that team. Phenomenal.
Yes. And I'm going to now fast forward a little bit towards the end of your Princeton coaching career. You are 30 years old, and now the word is out. There's going to be an Olympics, and you've got to do the math. You've got a job working in hockey. That's got to be a dream for a hockey player. And suddenly you decided to take, I believe it's a leap of faith.
Yeah, and you say suddenly, but I really was in turmoil, honestly, because I'm working at Princeton University. This is a beautiful college. It's a great job. I'm involved in the game. I can help grow players. But I also knew for myself, like, I still wanted to play. And at that point at Princeton, they were kind of asking coaches to back off the national team environment. I was the only Princeton coach that was actually still playing, but there were other Princeton coaches that were coaching at the national level. So the writing was sort of on the wall. I needed to decide, am I going to stay at Princeton, or, like you say, take a leap of faith and try for this Olympic team? And that's what I decided to do, obviously. And it was a struggle. Like, I really battled. But after I left Princeton, it then dawned on me. I was still pretty young, I want to say, at that point, but it dawned on me that I can return to coaching. I just can't play forever.
Right.
So I had to take the chance.
So you left Princeton, came back to Michigan, lived with your family, and trained for better part of 3 years?
Yeah, trained full time. Well, yeah, up to probably good solid year and a half. Lonely days, like in the gym, on the track, trying to get ice time, because a lot of my teammates were on the East Coast.
Right.
So it was challenging.
Now, there was an 18-year-old who happened to play your position, a future Hall of Famer named Jenny Schmidgall. And suddenly you are on the cusp. Didn't you do the math and figure out how many centers they had? And she was having a terrific camp. What kind of angst was that?
Oh, that was terrible. Honestly, it was terrible. I had never heard of this kid. I'm like, who's this Jenny Schmidgall? And those of you who may recognize her name, I mean, she is just a phenomenal hockey player. But at the time, she was really sort of just coming in to USA Hockey. And she was super young and had about, I don't know, maybe 3 years of organized hockey under her belt. I mean, she was a prodigy. This kid was a prodigy. And yeah, you start looking around. This is like heading into the last cuts for the Olympic team. And I remember thinking to myself, like, gosh, I really don't want this young kid to take my spot.
You left a
so to
job.
speak.
You trained for all this
Yes.
stuff. And you get this, your kid about to steal your spot on the Olympic team.
Yeah. It was super
Oh.
unnerving. And I felt at that time, I was a bubble player.
Right.
Yeah. So you're doing everything to fight and scrap and to earn your way on the team. And, there's those elements of, how are you as an individual player and how are you as a team player? And I knew that Ben Smith, our coach, he's like a chemist, right? He's got all these great hockey players. So it's not like, it's like, well, she kind of sucks. Like, we're going to get rid of her. Like, everybody was good. And so you have to understand, like, he's processing and how do I fit? How do I fit in that formula? What do I need to do to make sure that I stay in the mix?
Yeah. Yeah. And you wound up making the team in a 10th round of cuts. You made the team. And so did Jenny Schmidgall. The hockey world knows her today as Jenny Potter, one of the great women hockey players in the country. But you made the Olympic team. How'd that work out for you?
I went pretty well.
How is it? I want to get to getting to Japan. Is that where we're going with this thing?
That's exactly right. Keith wrote, we had some mini chapters in here called Postcards from Nagano. And one of my favorite is called Gearing Up. So Keith, take it away. They had just arrived, just getting over their jet lag, and they're in Nagano.
Yeah. It's called Gearing Up. It begins on the road, and they log thousands of miles around the globe, schlepping their gear and armed with a couple of hockey sticks. They looked like any other adult travel hockey team on a shoestring budget. Proud as they were, though, who could blame them if they felt themselves fighting off a bit of anger and no small amount of embarrassment by their outward appearances? After all, these were some of the best hockey players in the world, and their sponsor was the United States of America, the richest nation on the planet. And there they were, looking borderline destitute when they showed up for world tournaments. Lisa Brown-Miller remembers. Oh, now we can turn to you. Tell us about that. Tell us about what it was like. You basically were playing in hand-me-down gear that didn't fit.
For sure. Yeah. And being 5'1", trying to wear some of that hand-me-down gear was just an absolute joke.
This is hand-me-down men's stuff.
To be honest with you. Yeah. And USA Hockey felt like, okay, well, now here's this women's hockey team. Like, how can we save a buck? Well, we've got all this leftover gear, whether it be helmet, gloves, shells, or pants. It was all just enormous. And we felt quite ridiculous. You're trying to, like, anybody who plays, it doesn't have to be hockey, but, if you're a runner, right? Or, whatever you might do, if you paint, like, you've got to have the right paintbrushes, right? Like, what feels comfortable on your body to play in peak, to be at peak performance. And here we are swimming in our gear, right, especially me, trying to play the best game that I can play. Right. So yeah, thankfully, over the course of the time, those first handful of teams, it was rough. But thankfully, we ended up with a equipment manager who was really adept with a sewing needle or altering gear to make sure that it worked not just only for me, but for any of our players.
And you get to Nagano, Japan, and you're on the Olympic team, and they take you to what we call it gearing up, where they give you a shopping basket. I think that probably might have been the first time that you felt like, oh yeah, this is the Olympics. What was that like? Just getting a basket full of
so
stuff.
For us, right, like we were kind of, I don't say not even on the radar yet, but here we are, part of the U.S. Olympic contingency. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get the same gear everybody else is going to get. And we're not talking about, skates and helmets. We're talking about, like, the parade jacket, like my dad is wearing, or we're talking about pants or shoes or how. And we had, so we all are given these shopping carts. Imagine, whatever your favorite store is to shop in, right? And you're given a shopping cart saying, like, fill it up with whatever you want.
It's like a giant Costco.
It's huge. It's this room that just has table after table after table. Like, here you're going to get your sneakers, and here you're going to get your jeans, and here you're going to get your parade.
One of the coolest pieces of apparel that I remember hearing about was a podium outfit, right? For when you win your medal, you put on this outfit to get your medal.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. But the extra bonus to that was I could try things on, and so things actually fit.
Yes.
So
yes.
I wasn't swimming in my gear anymore, and yeah, we finally were. I mean, it felt like kids. We felt like in a candy shop or a toy store, and we had to keep sort of pinching each other. And once it was all done and you work your way through, and they even sized you for Olympic rings and a leather jacket. And so after we all got out and we have our shopping carts, we're sort of stationed outside of the exit, kind of clogging things up. And we're just looking at all our things saying, oh my gosh, do we get to keep this?
Well, and some of your teammates were, are we going to get a bill like for $5,000 when this is all over?
Yeah, it was absolutely
Wow.
nothing we had ever experienced before. It was really like Keith, like you just said, it was really quite the opposite. And to use a cliche sort of term, like we really were second-class citizens in the USA hockey world, and it
Right.
took until we actually got to the Olympics to be treated right. And it was the Olympic Committee
Yeah.
That's excellent.
that was doing it.
So another Nagano story, and I have to, forgive me, I'm going to take a little personal trip down here. I was taking a family vacation, and I'm in JFK International Airport in New York, and it was the day, and the time zones were weird, but it was the day of the round-robin Canada-US game. So I'm going by all these establishments that have televisions on, and I'm seeing women's hockey, Kimmy Granato scoring. It's like, holy crap, we were losing 4-1, and suddenly we had turned this game around, and there's Lisa Brown-Miller scoring on national television, a dagger goal to make it 6-4, this incredible comeback. They were down 4-1 in the third period, and suddenly you're beating Canada, the team that owned you before this. You got to take us through this, your prime time moment on national television.
Yeah, actually, that was pivotal for this team because having won silver for so many years, there was definitely, whether you want to call it a mental block or an expectation that had kind of seeped into a lot of players. And with the mix-up of veterans being cut and trying to bring in some new, blood to the program, and the attention that we got, like you could feel from the coaching staff and a sports psychologist, which we had never had before. You could kind of feel that tide turning within the team, and the fact that we were going to the first ever Olympics for women's hockey, like the newness of it, we were so excited. But even beyond that, what was happening was there was a credit to the coaching staff, really, like we were a team. And that was the difference from any other time. Like we gelled like no other team I've ever been on before. And I had somebody ask me earlier, like, when you think of the 98 Olympics and being a gold medal, what do you think of? And the very first thing I think of is that team. Super special. But that was the difference maker in that game, because even though we were not having a great game, like,
No,
right? It was terrible.
You're 4-1. You're thinking, here we go again. Another.
And we were in the penalty box. We couldn't get out of the penalty box, and we're trying to think, how are we going to scrap out of this? And our coach just it's a like genius move, right?
Timeout.
Calls a timeout, and he basically says, like, listen, ladies, like, we're just playing for a bag of donuts here. Like, we're both going to be in the gold medal game. And really, I mean, the guy is super smart. And what he did is he kind of brought our stress level down. And, he said, stay out of the penalty box. Let's kind of end this thing on a good note. And really, this is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it was something. And it really turned things around for us. And he said, one goal at a time. Just kind of get one goal right now and see what happens. So we get one. And I don't know the timing of it. I know you do. And then we get another one. And then we start getting really excited. We get another one. And it was all in the span of like such a small amount of time. And 7 minutes, yeah, it was crazy. But what it really spoke to was the team and how everybody was willing to lay it all on the line for one another. There was not a single person who was out there to do it for themselves.
Right.
It was the complete sacrifice for one another.
The great big comeback. You win that game. You got the gold medal ahead of you, but you're sitting in the locker room with your teammates feeling pretty good.
Feeling pretty good. Yeah. Like I know I said, and I think it's in the book too, but I'm like, oh my, let's go play these guys now.
Right now.
Like we have them. We have them. They're on their heels.
Yep.
We totally have them. And just that confidence boost and the feeling like we can do this. We can do this. We can win this gold medal.
Yeah.
It was a huge moment.
So you come out for the gold medal game, and again, there's a 3-day wait, and there's all this stuff that goes on. You're going to have to read about it, but there was some crises and crisis management putting fires out. But finally, you get out on the ice for the gold medal game, and you score the first 2 goals, and you're up 2-0, and then things get tight. Canada scores; it's 2-1. You guys are clock watching. What was it like? Were you just gripping sticks on the bench?
Yeah, that was pretty intense. I mean, you'll hear, and I'm sure the players out there hear from their coaches, like the worst lead to have in hockey is a 2-goal lead because you feel comfortable, and it's just 1 goal that's going to like put that other team right back into it. So remember, if you've got a 2-goal lead, like
Make it 3.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. Yeah. So it was super intense because the Canadians started getting some momentum, right? And that's exactly what it was. You're starting to watch the clock, like, come on, like it's just not moving. And when you're out on the ice and you have your opportunity to play well for your team, you're really hoping you don't mess up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, but at the same time, you have this like, oh my gosh, we might do this. We're gonna do this. So it was like, yeah, you're tense, but at the same time, like you're feeling the energy and really what could come.
And Canada came so close to tying it up. Your goaltender, Sarah Teeting, made an out-of-body toe save on a puck that was destined for an open net, and it kept the puck out. And, short time
Sandra
later,
White got an empty net goal.
then-
When you saw an empty net goal, how long did
Oh
it
my
take for the
gosh.
reality to kick
Yeah,
in?
and then we just went berserk on the bench. Like, holy cow, like we're actually doing this. We are going to beat the Canadians in the Olympics. Yes, for that gold medal, right? It was mayhem. I mean, the game wasn't over yet, but it was mayhem.
And there's a couple of topics I want to get to. And one is how it all went south in 2002, and you had a front row seat working for NBC. But I want to acknowledge all the young players out here, right? Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Coach Joel, Timmy Heisel, you blew off practice to allow these girls to come. Thank you, coaches. That was great stuff. Now, since we have Lisa here, what's the key to keep advancing and getting to the next level? What can you tell these girls that have come to Traverse City tonight for this?
Yeah, I wish there was just a simple formula, but there's really not.
What about details?
Yeah, I was just gonna get into that. Like it obviously there's the drive, to want to get better as a player. But I mean, every facet of your life matters in how you're going to develop as a player. So we did talk about details, like the details matter, don't make excuses. Like if your skates need sharpened, go get them sharpened. If your coach is asking you to do a drill and it's not your favorite drill, guess what? You still do it. Like the details matter, and following through with your work, hard work. And it's not just on the ice. I mean, I can't imagine you're practicing every day, right? So when you're off the ice, you should be doing some work. You should, whether that's mental training, whether it's physical training, because the game's not all physical. And that was a key component for us as players, like to be able to gain that mental edge. So I'm not gonna lie, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication, takes a lot of sacrifice. I mean, there were many times I just wanted to play college hockey on maybe a Friday night. My friends are going to the football game and then going out afterwards. And I'm like, I'm going home. I'm going to bed. I've got a hockey game in the morning. And it may have only been like a rec hockey game, so to speak, but I knew that that was my path towards playing college hockey, and it was important to me. So if it's important to you, you'll put in the work probably pretty naturally. But understand, even with that, you're going to have some struggles. You're going to have some hardships. You're going to have some challenges. And making a team like the Olympic team, you have to be able to see beyond those challenges or work through them. Like, how do I get through this so that I can become a better player for myself and for my team?
Mm-hmm.
And what about things like balancing your time, nutrition, all these little details?
Yeah, thanks for that. I forgot that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, it does. And that sort of kind of alludes back to, or goes back to what I was saying about like choosing not to go to the high school football game and maybe going out to hang out with my friends late at night, or eating, having poor choices with food. So yeah, it's not just the hockey portion of it, but the other pieces of your life. And specifically, like you say, like balancing your time, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water. Like, we all hear this time and time and time again, but your body, there's a book out there that I love. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. Your body knows when you're treating it well and when you're not treating it well. And in order to become an elite athlete, or the highest level athlete or hockey player that you want to be, you need to understand that this is your machine. And how are you fueling your machine to take you where you want to go? What are your weaknesses? We all have them, right? Like, I'm not so great crossing over left, but I love crossing over right. Like, but you know what your weaknesses are, and you work on those to get those as best as you can.
That's great stuff. All right. Now, going back to 2001 and 2002, Team USA is the reigning gold medalists. They have an incredible run over Canada, 13 straight wins in the run-up. No one's ever done that to any Canadian team. And they're defending gold on home soil in Salt Lake City. But you knew, as a commentator for NBC, and knowing most of these players, something was off on that team.
Yeah, for sure. So they had obviously the edge with the wins and losses, right, going into that tournament. But yeah, there was definitely something amiss. You could see it within the team. Watching them play, I'm like, they don't play as a team. They're not cohesive. They're good on the ice, but they're not cohesive. And come to find out, we knew there were some things outside of the locker room that just were not helping them as well. And that's really what it boiled down to. Is there was whether it's difference of opinion or who's getting endorsements, who's not getting, who people were looking for the limelight. And that was the difference in 1998. None of us played for the limelight. We played for the love of the game, and we played for each other. And in 2002, I'm sure the goal in the end was the same, but the path to get there really got in the way. So it was really disheartening to see, because we all expected that they were going to win, but it was almost, I don't know if you want to call it like the perfect storm. Like, it would have been better if they would have fallen apart during the Olympic tour to try to pull themselves out of it. But the time in which they really needed to perform, they fell apart.
Yeah, and they felt pretty disappointed. Whereas you guys, not looking for the attention, all end up on the cover of the Wheaties box, which is just for champions of all time, almost always male.
And
There's a small picture here and a bigger one on the inside of the cover of that Wheaties box. Did you get some feedback for that? People say, hey, I saw you on the Wheaties box.
Yeah, but kind of the weirdest thing was when I would go shopping, like at the local grocery store, and you're like, walking down the cereal aisle, and you're like, oh, wait, what? Like, and you're seeing a cereal box that has, you and your team on it. It was super surreal. And We honestly didn't expect that. After we had won, they were talking about who they were going to pick for the Wheaties box, and some of you may have heard about this this little figure skater, Tara Lipinski, and she upset Michelle Kwan, which was kind of like for us, but in the figure skating world. And we thought, hands down, there's no way they're going to pick us. They're going to pick Tara Lipinski. And so when they did choose us, it was another one of those moments, kind of like going through and getting your shopping done. You know, like, wait, what, us? Like, okay. Like,
You
it was
trumped
super
the
exciting.
figure skating gold medalist.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, an interesting story with that. When I was training for the Olympic team, I blew out my ankle really bad right before the Olympics, and it was almost a devastating injury. And I had called the Olympic Training Center, our trainer there, and had asked her, like, Sue, man, I messed up my ankle pretty bad. I need to see somebody in Michigan. And she had said to me, she's like, well, there is a trainer there, and I think she's actually the trainer for the Red Wings now, Britta Ottoboni. And they had said, or Sue had said, if you go seek out Britta, she should be able to get you back in working order. She works at West Bloomfield High School. Do you happen to know where that is? Yeah, I think I know where that is. I spent a lot of time there. So I go to West Bloomfield High School to get treatment among other high school athletes, and there sitting next to me is Tara Lipinski.
Wow.
So Tara Lipinski and I were both trying to come back from our injuries to play in the Olympics, skate in the Olympics.
That's an amazing story. Keith.
Lisa, we make a pretty big deal in that book about the rivalry between Team USA and Canada. I was fortunate enough to cover for the Detroit Free Press the Detroit Red Wings Colorado Avalanche rivalry through its beginning to end in the early 2000s. One of the greatest, most vicious rivalries I've ever been around. I say that your Team USA's rivalry with Canada is as good or better than that. And it's been going on for 25 years now.
Yeah,
How vicious is it? Tell us about that rivalry.
It's like none other I have ever experienced. And oftentimes, we were asked, prior to a big game, like, how's that rivalry? And I know hate is a strong word, but honestly, at that point in time, like, we wanted nothing to do with each other. And if you saw a Canadian player in the hotel lobby, like, you're giving them the look. Or, if they get in the elevator, you're not getting in the elevator because there's probably a fight's going to break out.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, there wasn't a lot of crossover between U.S. and Canadian players. So all the U.S. universities were pretty much U.S. born and bred.
Right.
And, the Canadians they had a better, I don't want to say like rec system. It's not, they just had stronger, they had better depth than we did.
They also had their center of excellence in Calgary.
That's right,
and
they did.
They were really training their players for national team stuff.
Yeah. So it was pretty harsh. There was a lot on the line, not only in medal, but bragging rights. And I think we also kind of felt like, being south of, Canada, that like Canada had the upper hand just because that's what Canada's known for, is hockey. So there was just that fierceness between, the two countries in wanting we wanted to prove ourselves to them. Like, they were the team to beat because supposedly they, in our minds and theirs, that they were at the pinnacle of women's hockey.
Ben Smith had a term called Hudson Bay rules. So what's Hudson Bay rules? Knives and guns only. That's what this was like.
Yeah, it was brutal. Yeah.
And that round robin game, Keith, there was a couple Canadian players in the hospital, according to their coach.
Well, in a series of interviews with Shannon Miller, the Darth Vader of that rivalry, the woman in black, they called her, standing behind the bench coaching the Canadian team, she had a lot to say about how nasty the American girls were, the American women. She told us that the captain of her team, was only able to play after being released from the hospital that morning because she was urinating blood. She got hit in the kidneys or something, right? Or whatever. Haley Wickenheiser, their best player, apparently had a terrible elbow injury because one of your teammates maybe gave her a little greeting, with a stick.
I mean, there was no love lost.
No,
between
no
the
love
two
lost.
teams.
It was nasty.
Yeah, it's really, as I said, I've played college hockey and have coached college hockey, and you watch other teams, but this is as deep and as fierce as anything I've ever experienced.
Don't women play no check hockey? Isn't it called no check hockey? Watch it.
I think that's a suggestion, especially with the U.S. Canada games.
It's merely a suggestion. Yes.
Now, what's interesting, when I use a microphone, what's interesting, right, is that now there's been all this cross-pollination, meaning the University of Wisconsin is about 50-50 Canadian team U.S. candidates, including Dallas Drake's daughter from Traverse City, who's won 2 national championships at Wisconsin. And we're going to get into the fact that Michigan doesn't have a Division I school, but we'll get into that later. But the point is, I don't know if it's mellower, but they all know each other more. They play with and against each other. When you were playing in '98, you're strangers, and yet, and that hockey hatred thrived.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember. Actually, I think there was one Canadian player who played at Northeastern. So
That's right.
during my time playing college hockey, you didn't see Canadian players on any of the
Right.
college rosters. So not that because she wasn't on another team, we weren't going to become fast friends, but it just didn't exist.
Well, in this most recent Olympics in 2022, I looked at the roster of the Canadian team, women's team. One player on the whole team had not played college hockey in the United States. We train their players in our colleges.
Well, it's all part of the arms race.
That's
and
right.
The level of Canada-US keeps getting better, and the NCAA is fueling it. So if you girls out there want a goal, play Division I college hockey. That's better than pro hockey for women. It's really fantastic. Now, I want to talk about this book just a little bit, okay? We found some remarkable characters. Keith Gave waited 6 weeks to finally get a chance to talk to Shannon Miller, the woman in black, who dresses in all black like Johnny Cash. We open the chapter, Woman in Black, quoting a Seattle Times column, and I'd like to read that.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. And this is reporting during the Olympic tournament, and it was actually during the round-robin game that we've talked about. At one point in the second period, with the score tied at 1, a rough check to the boards by a U.S. defenseman prompted Canada coach Shannon Miller on an on-leave Calgary cop to stare down her rival, U.S. coach Ben Smith, with a glare that could melt plexiglass. When she finally caught his eye, Miller shouted an obscenity that even non-English speakers were able to lip read and then translate. She didn't realize she was on camera, and her 2-word salute became a 2-story high testimonial when it aired on the Aqua Wings Jumbotron. Even our Japanese hosts knew what she said, and the crowd, equally divided between mouth-foaming Americans and Canadians, went wild. "What can I say?" an unapologetic Miller asked with a wink and a smile after the post-game media scrum. "I'm a hockey coach, eh?" She was an amazing character, an amazing source, and a lot of it was true.
A lot of it was true. Yeah. She wasn't the easiest person to get. I knew we needed her to make this book as complete as possible. It took a lot of
Vetting.
a lot of time, to a lot of nice emails and phone calls, and to get her to agree to talk with me. And then we probably had 6, 7 different interviews and every one of them almost ended in tears. She wound up to be a very good, interesting source for this book.
Oh, that's an
Yeah.
understatement.
Yeah.
Had some really amazing facts coming out. And because she was a woman and had, during the run-up, declared that she was a gay woman, she got a lot of heat in the late 90s from a very chauvinistic Canadian environment there. And all that she went through, she's got a lot of mental scars from that. So after losing the gold medal, she goes back home to Canada and is fired immediately. So what does she do? She ends up going down to Duluth, and thanks to Title IX, there's NCAA scholarships. She started a dynasty at Duluth. Didn't stop. She won the first 3 NCAA championships were Shannon Miller. And what's interesting, unless there's something
The first thing she did was start recruiting Canadian players, bringing them down to University of Minnesota Duluth. But she didn't stop there. She went to Sweden. She went to Finland. She brought players from all over the world into this program in one of the great national programs of the early 2000s.
And there's an irony here, because in 2006, and again, this is 2 Olympics later, Ben Smith is still coaching Team USA. And Ben Smith would never utter her name. Couldn't stand her. USA Hockey couldn't stand her. They asked Ben and Shannon Miller to do like a Sports Illustrated cover shot. And Ben Smith said, no way, I'm not going to be in the same picture with her, right? So 2006 Olympics, she's coaching NCAA hockey. She fills the Swedish team with 4 of her Duluth players. And in the semifinals, Sweden shocks the United States. The only time we've never been in a gold medal game. And it was Shannon Miller's 2-star players, the goaltender and the scorer, took care of all the work and defeated the United States. It's a shocking result that really messed up Ben Smith's resume. And Shannon Miller was responsible for it.
Yeah.
She had the last laugh. And it's all documented here. It's a remarkable story. Keith? Shannon Miller, can you just try and characterize what it was like and your experience going back and forth with her?
Well, as one of the surprises of the reporting of this book, the research, finally getting a chance to talk with her and finding out that she's completely opposite of the image that we had of her. This Darth Vader, like a Mike Keenan type coach in the National Hockey League. I wasn't very well liked by his players. To find out she's really a soft-hearted woman with just great affection for her players, willing to do anything for her players. That whole business, there was some possible fraternization between Team USA members and Team Canada members in Nagano, Japan, and the 2 coaches had completely, distinctly different views. Shannon Miller says, I don't care who your friends are. I really don't care. Ben Smith did not want, well, you can speak to that better than I can. What was the fraternization business going on?
Yeah, well, this kind of goes back to, the Canadian college or the Canadian players were coming over playing U.S. college hockey. So, yeah, I mean, they naturally know each other. They've built friendships. They're teammates. Maybe they play against each other. Like it's a different time.
Mm-hmm.
But Ben still carried that from '98, right? Like that just fuel and that hatred, so to speak. That competitiveness that we're not going to cross a line. Same thing like in 1990, like you see him in the hotel lobby and you're like, you don't want to have anything to do with him. He wanted to make sure that his players were not, I don't want to say letting down their guard, but like losing their competitiveness by hanging out with their buddies. Like there's a point in time where maybe that's okay, but hey, we're here at the Olympics and it's all about business. So that was his take on it.
That's old-time hockey. You're not supposed to like the other guys.
And I'm with them. Yeah.
You don't. I mean, I had conversations with Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay, people like that, talking about the old days when they traveled by train between Detroit and Toronto, Detroit, Montreal, back and forth. And game's over, you're hustling to the train, and the teams are in a race to get there to the train first so that they can dominate the club car. If the Canadians got the club car, then it's a long trip to Montreal. You just don't like those guys, and you don't fraternize with them. Same way at the Olympics.
Yeah, he didn't want the players to become distracted.
There's another discrepancy between Ben Smith and Shannon Miller, and it was before the round robin game. And according to Shannon, an Olympic official went and told both teams, we want you to take it easy. This is just a game to show how well you guys can play. So, you can go, Hudson Bay rules in the gold medal game. But in this game, why don't you take it easy? Now,
this is a nice little showcase game.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Ben Smith says, I don't remember any conversation like that. And I would never comply with such a thing. Shannon Miller said, oh yeah, we told our girls to take it easy. We all ended up in the hospital. Do you remember any of that you were supposed to take it easy on Canada in that round robin game?
No, I don't remember that at all. And quite honestly, you're not going to be able to tell the Canadian women like, oh, let's take this game lightly. Like, this is your biggest rival.
Right.
And now you're going
Right.
to take it lightly. I think it was just a tactic, right? To an excuse for maybe why they didn't win, because we were told to take it lightly and we didn't play as hard as we should have. And some of our players got injured because we didn't. There's no way there's no way that they would have ever played.
And you can't play hockey at 80%.
Oh,
You can't. You're going to get hurt. That's how injuries happen.
yeah. Well, and when you're an Olympic athlete, no matter, like, when you're an Olympic athlete, you're not going to like tone it down.
Right.
It's the first time it's in the games. You know, you want to play more than anything, and it's your biggest competitor.
Mhm.
So I don't buy it.
Okay. I want to bring this back to the state of Michigan. We have some time for Keith's essay, which was really powerful stuff, but I want to leave a little time for some debate. So I'm going to jump into it now.
Yeah.
Keith's essay about what's going on in the state of Michigan when it comes to Division I hockey. So it's the essay, it's called The Power of Losing, but there was a front end of this from Keith's essay to end the book.
When she was racking up victories in national championships at the University of Minnesota Duluth, Shannon Miller had a chance encounter with legendary University of Michigan men's hockey coach Red Berenson. His team must have been playing our UMD men's team, Miller said. He was just stepping off the elevator when I saw him. Now I just love the Red Baron, and I say, hey, Red, I just wanted to say hi. I'm Shannon Miller. Berenson smiled and responded, I know who you are. You're the one who wins all the time. The comment rendered Miller almost speechless. Red Berenson knows my name, she thought. Miller quickly recovered. She could tell Berenson was in a hurry. Hey, coach, do you think you'll ever have a women's hockey program at Michigan? She asked. Not as long as I'm around, Berenson said, and he walked away. After 33 seasons during which his Wolverines won 848 games and 2 national championships, Gordon Arthur Red Berenson retired from coaching in 2017. The University of Michigan, one of the wealthiest athletic programs in the nation, 30 miles from a place that boastfully calls itself Hockey Town, in a state with 7 NCAA Division I men's hockey programs, 2 Canadian Hockey League major junior teams, some of the oldest and most successful youth hockey teams in the world, still had no NCAA women's team. Neither did Michigan State, nor Northern Michigan, Michigan Tech, Western Michigan, Ferris State, or Lake Superior State in 2022. In a word, that is disgraceful.
And Keith later went on to write, okay, that you've got Lisa Brown-Miller, you got Shelley Looney, 2 of the stars of that gold medal team.
From Michigan. Yeah.
From Michigan, that have to coach elsewhere or coach club hockey. I'd love to hear your response.
They should be
on that.
coaching at Michigan and Michigan State right now, women's teams. It's a tough sell it's been, huh?
Yeah, it's really, it is disheartening and it is disgraceful because we didn't realize in '98 the impact that our team was going to have. We were 20 women who loved the game and just really wanted to win badly. After 1998, women's hockey exploded, and you can speak to the numbers on that. I know you have them in the book, but the number of college programs there are now. And it just seems to me to make sense. Like, Michigan is supposedly a hockey hotbed, right? And it is, but they're really not following through by not gaining some NCAA program. It's an easy sell.
Mhm.
Super easy sell, and it's sad.
University of Michigan women's hockey has to run GoFundMe sites to pay for their ice.
$20,000 a season for their ice time at Yost Arena.
It's really,
We're 50 years into Title IX, and women still lag far behind.
while Ohio State is a national champion, Wisconsin's a super team, 4 teams in Minnesota, all giving out scholarships.
I see a lot of little girls here tonight in their jerseys who might want to play Division I hockey someday, and their parents are going to have to send them out of state to Wisconsin or Minnesota, Ohio State, Penn State, or out east to all those great programs out there. Since '98, we've gone from 14 Division I women's programs to more than 40 all over the country, really, except here. That's bad. We got to change that.
Okay, on that note, oh, and Keith wants anybody with influence that knows the directors.
Well, you know the trustees at Michigan or Michigan State. You got a hotline to the new president, Santa Ono at Michigan. Put a bug in his ear. We have to, this is going to be my my little soapbox
cause,
in
yeah.
promoting this book, that we need more opportunities for young women in this state.
And with that, it's time to take some questions.
Excellent. Questions?
There are people with microphones that will bring the microphone to you.
We
I
got lots
see
of them. Good.
a hand right up front. If someone could bring the microphone to this gentleman with salt and pepper hair, a little more salt and pepper.
Thank you. It was great talk. Lisa, when do you still play some hockey? And if you don't, do you miss it?
Yeah, I am not playing a lot of hockey these days, and it's not because I don't want to. The last 2 true games that I played were in Aspen. The Aspen youth program was doing a fundraiser, and they had brought the '98 team out to play. I think it's Colorado University, one of the college teams in Colorado. And the first time we played, which was a handful of years ago, felt a little tweak in my left hip. I'm like, that didn't feel so hot. And then a year later, they asked us to come out again. And it turns out I have a torn labrum in my hip, which is not uncommon for hockey players and football players, soccer players. It's a very known injury to have. And so I have it on my my bucket list to get my hip fixed, so I can go back out there. Ann Stanton said to me at one point, she's like, man, I really wish I knew how to skate. She's like, it's got to be a lot like flying. And that really struck me how much I miss playing. Like I just sort of have like accepted my fate, so to speak, and just kind of biding time. But that was a moment where I'm like, I need to get back out there. And the team that I help coach now, that Fox Motorsports team, if they are asked to skate a lap, I'm like, I'm going to jump in here and see how this feels. And I really miss playing at that level.
There's a lot of questions from these young ladies back here.
What is your opinion on girls not being able to check?
Great question. Lisa?
I think one of the special things about girls hockey, women's hockey, and probably the biggest compliment that I hear about our game is that players are so skilled. And if you add checking into the game and making that the skill, I think you lose some of the, the stick handling, the shooting, the read and react, what is systems, if you guys are playing with systems. So it's not like I'm against checking, but I do believe that in regards to skill, it's better for the women's game to like show off, what you can do with the puck rather than how hard you can hit somebody.
And as a referee, I see plenty of body contact that we don't send girls to the box for, especially the angling off. What they're really trying to eliminate is the open ice hitting, that dangerous stuff where you've got your head down and you get blown up in neutral ice. They're trying to get that out. But, the rough and tumble stuff in the corner, let it ride.
Yeah, mix
You'll
it
have
up.
some fun there.
Mix it up. Don't go in there with
Play hockey
your-
like a
your-
girl.
your best manners and say, "Oh no, after you, no, after you." Like, go in there and dig for the puck. Like, as a coach, that's what I'm looking for. I want gritty, determined, hardworking hockey players, and it's one of the things that I talk to. I love working with the younger players because they're so like eager to get better, and some of those little things like that, they're going to make a difference in your game. So be physical, be aggressive, but stay out of the box.
Okay.
What would you say inspires you the most and why?
What inspires you the most and why?
Can I call a friend? Phone a friend? Yeah, I think that's a big question. Were you gonna say something, Tim?
I was
You
thinking,
gonna like?
well, you work with aspiring young hockey players and you're affecting lives, as a substitute teacher. Isn't that where the gratification comes from?
Yeah, and I think what was happening is my mind was sort of bouncing all over the place. Like, how do I answer this question? Was it more so when I was playing, or is it now? And I started going back through my resume, so to speak, and in preparing my bio for tonight. And I've been involved with a lot of teams, a lot of youth programs mainly, and that inspires me right now. And my ask to the younger players in here, just what Keith had touched on with the lack of college opportunities here in Michigan. Like, you guys are the game changers. You might not think it right now, but you are the game changers. And that gives me inspiration that there are so many of you here that love the game and want to hear this story, but the story doesn't stop here. You need to go out there and pound the pavement. How badly do you love this game? What kind of opportunities do you want to have? And sure, we can throw it on to the adults, but like, what are you going to do? So that gives me inspiration to see the game continue to grow. We're by no means there yet. And obviously the glaring point here is that there's no college hockey, but I think in general, girls hockey, we're still not there yet. And it is super important that you understand that and you continue to put hard work into the game.
I'd like to take a shot at that question too. What inspires me is seeing all those young girls with their jerseys on right there. Listen, you guys are standing on Lisa's shoulders where you're going to take this game. But Tim and I, when we put this book together, we were thinking of a way to dedicate it. We dedicated it to our daughters, not our daughters, the Universal Hour. We dedicated this book to you guys, and I'm again thrilled and grateful that you're here tonight. Thank you.
We do have time for one more question.
All right, this question comes from our live stream. That's actually one of the gals you coach, Lisa.
Oh, yay.
Avery Albers, I just want to say, when she got onto the live stream tonight, she said, "Yes, Lisa, slay." But her question for you is, Coach Lisa, what made you want to come and coach the 14 and under team?
Sorry. First of all, hi, Avery. And hi to any of the other girls that are watching.
Take a minute. Take a minute.
So I've had my time coaching college hockey. And I really felt like at this point in my life, what really was more important to me was growing the game at the younger level. And so I talked with Coach Slobo, and I knew that he was trying to get more girls, female players involved in the program. And I expressed my desire to get back into a place where there's just hunger and fuel and energy to improve. So he offered me the opportunity to get involved with Fox Motorsports, and I am grateful. He wanted me to focus on the U14 team because they're kind of the up and coming group and they're super good. And I know you guys can win states. And then we're going to go to nationals in California. But I believe in growing girls hockey. And if I'm not going to do it at home, where am I going to do it? And I think that organization has their hearts in the right place. And it actually brings a smile to my face. I know Peggy can attest to that, but it brings a smile to my face when I step out on the ice for those girls.
Thank you. Thank you.
This was such a fantastic night. And you girls, you go out and fly on the ice. And I want all of you to call up the TCAP school board and say, where's our team? Call up University of Michigan, Northern Michigan. It's about time we have girls teams, right? Women's teams. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Oh, there will be a signing, and buy a book, and thank you so much again. Bye.